Shavuot. Okay. All right. Be careful, Milt. So now, what do we got? We have number one, you have Shemitah and Yovel. But I want to focus on really three words, okay, which I'm hoping that I'll be able to. I, all I would need is a book. Anybody can do it without a book. Let's see if we can do it. I can find the book. So let's see. Hold on. Keep calm. Now, there is, okay, so let's start with this. In Parshas Bahar, you have, at least for the third time in the Torah, the prohibition of a Jew taking interest from another Jew. All right? And this is found on page 702 in our Chumashim, right? Starting with Pasuk 35. So the Torah says, literally, if your brother becomes poor, impoverished, umata yado imach, and literally he extends his hands, with you, all right? And v'chazaktabo, the Torah says, you shall literally hold him up, l'chazek, to strengthen. And this is understood that the highest form of tzedakah is to give somebody a job, to give them dignity, rather than to give them, quote, a handout, to give them the opportunity to earn money by themselves. And if you think about it, that is at the core of leket, shikha, and peah, right? Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to go back for a minute, especially if I can't find my book. Okay. All right. All good. All good. Um, if you go back to yesterday's parsha, this is worthwhile. You're discussing this at your table, be it anytime or on Shavuos night. You'll see why. I'm giving you homework for Shavuos night. We read yesterday in Parshas Emor, the Parsha of the Moadim. It's chapter 23 in yesterday's Parsha of Emor, all the Chagim in the chronological order. You have Shabbos, and why that's included as a Chag, we'll leave alone for the moment. But then you have Pesach, Shavuos, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, as we have it in the calendar. And take my word for it, but you'll see yourself that each of the holidays only contain laws about that holiday. All right. So when it comes, however, to Shavuos, it starts on 684 and Usfartem Lochem, right? Starting in the mitzvah of Sfiras HaOmer, which we know bridges Pesach and Shavuos, which we are in now. Last night was 35. You are to count Mimochas HaShabbos from the day after first day of Yom Tov, from the day that you bring the Korban Omer, okay, which we know is barley, and we're counting from barley to wheat, as I tell you all the time, meaning that barley is ma'achal behema and wheat is ma'achal adam. We go from a low level of being like an animal when we left Egypt, and 7 weeks later, whoa, we are on a much higher level, namely that of a human being. Okay, good. Now, the Torah tells us that you are to bring lechem tenufa shtayim, which is literally two breads, and they are to be chometz, as you can see. This is all pasuk Yud Zayin on 684, and bikurim Hashem. Now, take my word for it, but in Parshas Pinchas, when the Torah speaks about the Karban Musaf, Shavuos is called Yom HaBikurim. Now, we are accustomed to thinking that Bikurim means first fruit, and it does. In Parshas Kisavo, when the Torah says to bring every year the first of your fruits to the Beis Hamikdash, we are speaking there of the 7 species found in Parshas Akev, easy to remember, chapter 8, verse 8, where the Torah speaks of Ita Seora, right? Wheat, barley, Geffen to of a rimon, grapes, figs, pomegranates, that's 5. Eretz Zeis Shemen, olives, Udvash, dates. Those are the 7 species from which you bring Bikurim. So why is Shavuos called Bikurim? Okay, I'll take 2 answers for that. The first answer for that is that you start bringing your Bikurim right after Shavuos. So Shavuos initiates the bringing of Bikurim, and you had all summer long to bring your Bikurim, all right? You brought your Bikurim with a recitation. I hope you know what I'm talking about. I just don't want to go too far afield, but you'll see where I'm going in a moment. You brought your bikurim, your first fruits, with the recitation of Arami Ovid Avi until Sukkot. And if you still haven't brought your first fruits by Sukkot, you can bring it from Sukkot to Hanukkah without a recitation. So that's the first reason why Shavuos is called Chag or Yom HaBikurim or Chag HaBikurim. And the second reason is, listen carefully, just like what's a Bechor? A Bechor is the first. So let's just mention this. There are 2 korbanos which we should become a drop more familiar with what they accomplish. The Torah says that, and it fits with the general pattern, that before a Jew benefits from, quote, even his work, because there's no such thing as your work, you are given the opportunity to work with Hashem. Hashem is the one that is the ultimate producer, but he invites man to join him. So therefore we have our dignity. Whoa, what a different way of looking at going to work. I don't know about all people, do they complain about going to the work, etc. But if you really had a deep perspective as to what's going on when you're going to work, after a while, a person, I believe the Yiddish word is kest, if I'm pronouncing it right. Uh, Shira, you'll ask your husband, the rabbi, for a good translation, but if I'm not mistaken, it means either or. Years ago, yeshiva boys, first of all, they didn't have dormitories and they didn't have lunchrooms. What does that mean? You either slept and ate by a particular family, and the particular family was only ideally too happy to have a yeshiva boy joining them for meals, that this way it was a win-win situation. They were not themselves scholarly, but having a yeshiva man because not only are we talking about young boys, 13 and above, we're talking about, young men who are sitting and learning. And so who's going to support them? So local people, I believe you're giving them um, food, was called kest. You'll check with the rabbi. And this was true not only before a person was married, but the closest thing to what we would say today is a kollel. So he too, TOO, might have been supported by a family, eating by a family, or when he got married, if the father-in-law was able to provide for him, I believe that too, TOO, was called guest. So what does that mean? You would think that that's probably the the best situation. So if it's truly someone that's very sincere with their learning, then they, after a while, don't feel that they're, quote, just taking, because they really do feel that they are contributing with their learning. However, yesh v'yesh, if a person, after a while, what could be better? I wouldn't have to work hard and I'm being fed. So the answer is that many, many people would just feel uncomfortable being on the taking side. In other words, man has more dignity when he gives than when he takes. So therefore, the idea is that Hashem allows us to feel that we are, you know, doing something, that we have our dignity, when in reality, he is the one who makes the deals and he's the one that provides the parnasa, as we know. Okay, so having said that, what we have clearly is the following, that the Torah, let's say, for example, when the Torah says that leket, that's what we're going to get to right now. Leket, Shikha, Peah, which are three of the very famous agricultural mitzvos that we have, which apply in the land of Israel when we have, on a biblical level, when we have a Beis Hamikdash. Now, what does that mean? It means that the farmer, when he is cutting his um, stalks of corn, so picture this. He's got a strap around his shoulder with a basket in front of him. And as he cuts it, the corn falls into the basket, and whatever's in the basket is his. Every once in a while, some corn will drop to the floor. So what's the din? What do you mean, what's the din? It's his field. He planted it. And the halacha says very clearly that that which falls to the ground, 1 or 2 ear, EAR of corn, stays on the floor. You can't, don't tell me it's yours, Hershon. Leave it there for the poor. That's called leket. Okay. Now, 3 or more, Nathan, pick them all up. Again, these are laws, how the rabbis arrived at these uh, decisions, but this is law of leket. Now, and what's peyo? Peyo is that it's my field, but I can't completely cut everything and harvest all of my field. I have to leave a corner for, once again, the poor. So basically, what's going on with leaving a corner and leaving the droppings for the poor is giving the poor dignity, meaning that they have permission to come into the field and they can, let's go, they can on their own gather it, and they feel a little, yes, I know it belongs the field to Mr. Goldberg, to Mr. Hochbaum, whoever the field belongs to. But I am not standing online, putting my hand out and saying, please give me, which to a certain extent, is somewhat demeaning, here the Torah says you put a basket around your shoulders, and you have the dignity of picking it up and feeling that you are somewhat involved in the process. Interesting. Okay. So now I want you to tell me, go to the very bottom of 684. So Mendy, don't send me an email that, I went off the topic, because here we go. Very bottom line of 684. Ukrosem be'etzem hayom hazeh. This is the reason why, as we know, we can't start Shavuos early. Mendy is one of the champions for the early minyan on Friday afternoon, throughout the summer, etc. But you can't do it on Shavuos because of those three words. Etzem hayom hazeh. It has to be literally, as we know, on this very day, which is the day begins at night, not for Tmimos, etc. Now watch. Top line of page 686. Mikra Kodesh, good. Now, second line down, 22. Why is the Torah putting in the paragraph talking about Shavuos? Why does the Torah put in this law of don't completely cut the corner of your field, and the gleanings, meaning that which fell to the floor, don't you pick up. Rather, for the poor, the stranger, leave it. Ani Hashem Elokechem. Ani Hashem Elokechem, God is telling you to do it. But the question is, why is this repeated? We already had it in Kedoshim, and why is this found in the paragraph talking about Shavuos? So one beautiful answer is, everybody, that what did we get on Shavuos? We didn't only get the Torah, which is laws that I would not have thought of my own. If I have a committee, a law committee is not going to come up with a law that says, Leon, you can't wear woolen linen. Leon, you have to eat this cracker called matzah on this night. Leon, you have to put a piece of parchment on your door. These are all things which man would never have thought of on his own. But Ani Hashem Elokechem. Okay, I am your God. Do it because Hashem tells you to do it. But what about those things which are man to man? So there, Hirschhorn says, God, you step aside. We don't need you to tell us man to man. We're all smart people. We care about each other. Leave the man to man to ourselves, right? Wrong. That's what the Torah is teaching us. So Shavuos is coming. So don't just tell me, Rhode Island, that what is Shavuos all about? That we got the Torah. No. The Torah, which is both laws man to God, but even man to man, God knows that man does not have that wall capacity. What an unbelievable idea. Because the nature of man, this is what we're going to be doing today. What a beautiful segue into today's. You thought I forgot about Bahar. I'll be there just in one moment. So the idea is that even man to man was given at Sinai, which, for example, happens to be the name of the late Irving Bunim, his work on Pirkei Avos, which is just the name itself is so nice, Ethics from Sinai. And that's what the Jew believes. Okay, having said that, let's go to this week's parsha. All right, here we are. We are in Bahar, and the Torah says, watch. 1 second. Yes, 702. So the Torah says, if your fellow Jew is having a hard time, he's become impoverished. Second, this is our pasuk 36. Al tikach me'ito neshech v'sarbis. you are not to take from him interest and increase. All right. Neshach literally means to bite. A dog bites. And tarbis from the word harbe. In other words, and this is a very interesting or challenging law, right? By definition, let's say you have a producer, a middleman, a retailer, and the customer. So obviously, everybody wants a piece of the action because if it costs a, let's take a simple item, a pen, and it costs $1 to produce this pen. So clearly, the one who produces it can't sell it for $1 because he's going to make no money. So he has to charge the wholesaler whatever. Now, the wholesaler is going to sell it to the retailer. He can't sell it for what he paid for it because, again, nobody's going to make any money. So everybody's going to make a little bit on this pen. The producer makes, the wholesaler makes, the retailer makes, and okay, everybody, therefore is, so to speak, ideally happy. So if this is true when it comes to merchandise, then why can't it be true as well when it comes to money? Meaning, I need $1,000. I go to the bank says, Yudin, for you will only charge 5%, 6%, etc., whatever it is. And then I go to my buddy, and my buddy says, for you, I'll give it to you for 3%. Whoa, I am so happy. And what does the Torah say? Don't you dare. Now remember, I always tell you, there's a big difference as to why does your friend, quote, want to borrow money. If he's borrowing money because he's opening up a business in the community, which we all hope is going to be well and do well, then by all means, if you lend him money for the business, he's opening a shoe business and he's a good salesman, but he doesn't have the money for stocking this, his new business, and he comes to you to borrow money for that. So the law says quite clearly that you can invest in his business. So you're not taking interest in that case there. You are very importantly investing, whereby if he does well, you do well because he's the good salesperson, but you gave him the capital. So there you're certainly permitted to take, but you're only permitted to do that. These are the laws of Heter Iska. You're only permitted to do that when you can also take a loss. In other words, I'll lend you X amount of money. And if the business does well, I get this percentage. And if the business doesn't so well, no, that you can't get your money back. You'd have to be able to take a loss as well. That you can do. So here, why can't I use my money the same way that if the pen costs me whatever, I could charge other people more and the bank would charge money. So why can't I charge you money as well? Right? And especially if I'm doing you a favor, I'm lending you. So there's a delicious clay yakar on this verse. To quote Rabbi Yudin, it's worth buying the set just for this one teaching of clay yakar. And the clay yakar says very interesting. You ready? Watch this. I am that pen salesman. All right. So before I come into your store, you sell retail, I sell wholesale. So before I come into your store, I put one of those breath fresheners in my mouth that I don't have bad breath. and I fix my tie, and I hopefully look nice that I can. And before I walk in, I look upstairs to Hashem and I say, Hashem, I need this sale. I need. So I am counting on you, Hashem, to help me. Come on, make this sale. Good. Now, when it comes to somebody lending money, so someone says to me, Yudin, I checked your credit and it's not the best. I'll tell you what, I'll lend you $1,000, but just give me $1,000 worth of jewelry. So just in case, come on, the you can't pay me back. No problem. I have the jewelry. So if that's going to happen, that we have the person's jewelry, I'm not worried. I can say, Hashem, take the day off. I don't need you for this deal. I've taken care of everything myself. Whoa. And a Jew always needs Hashem. Wow. In other words, again, why can't a Jew take interest? Because you are, whoa, taking matters into, quote, your own hands. It's a brilliant shot. In other words, I don't know if you and I would have come up with this on our own, but this is the Kleyakar on this verse. Okay, having said that, now we are about to plummet this verse.
Rabbi.
Yes, my friend.
Yeah, I read in the paper yesterday, actually in the Jewish press, they asked the question about interest. If somebody wants to give a loan and they wanted to tie the loan into the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, it wasn't defined interest. If it goes up, and you have to pay back corresponding based on what the market bears. So he also said, NG, that's not that good. It's not a defined interest, but it's still considered to be interest, and it's not something you can do.
Wow. Thank you. Good man. So that's number one. But now listen carefully. The question is, so you're not permitted to take interest from another Jew. Good. Now look at the last three words in the verse. These, here goes. If it was your chumash, underline it, circle it in red. Okay. What does the Torah say? V'chei ochicha imoch. Let your brother live with you. So literally it means don't strangle your brother. Don't take advantage of your brother. The chinuch, if I'm not mistaken, says that's exactly correct. In other words, your friend is making a wedding, or your friend is, and he needs additional money. Don't take advantage of, but rather let him live with you. Okay, I'll give you another explanation of those three words. Let's say, watch this. From the letter of the law, is my charging you interest? Would you say that's stealing? Hershon, am I stealing from you if I charge you interest? What do you say? Jenny? I don't think you put your volume on or microphone. In other words,
you're not stealing.
So wait a second.
I'm telling you what I'm doing.
What? So let's say, hold on.
What I'm doing.
The bank would charge you X. I charge you X minus. I'm your best friend. You're happy. I'm happy. We shake hands on the deal. And then afterwards, both of us go to a shiur and we learn, oh, yeah, even though we were both happy, this was wrong. So now, watch. There is a verse in the Torah, take my word for it, at the very end of Vayikra. The Torah says that if a Jew, Steal, steals from somebody else, forgive me, you have to pay back. So here, what would you say? You agree to it. You agreed to paying me interest, and you paid me interest. And now we find out that it was wrong. Do I have to give the money back to the person that that paid the interest, right? Do I have to pay it? Do I have to pay it back? After all, stealing is I put my hand in your pocket, or you're not home, and God forbid I take. Here, I didn't do any of that. If anything, you agreed to it. So the Talmud teaches us. You ready, everybody? Very interesting. This is found in Bava Metzia 62a, that the Torah teaching us that not only when it comes to actual stealing that you are to return that which you stole, but even interest. So v'chayochicha imach, which means let your brother live with you, imach, with you, means that give it back to him so that he has as best a chance to do well on his own. But in other words, you could read this 100 times because again, we ascribe to that principle that there are no extra words in the Torah. And if there are no extra words in the Torah, what is the Torah teaching by those three words? And interesting, also in this verse, fear the boss, okay, meaning no such thing as keeping him out of the picture, like I told you before. But imach, let your brother live with you. Okay, so this is one way of reading the verse. Now, listen carefully. There's an exceedingly famous case, which I'm sure we've talked about in the past, but this is based upon these three words. Here we go. It's also on the top part of Bava Metzia 62a. So it's a very important piece of Talmud. The Gemara has the following, let's call it moral dilemma, moral halachic dilemma, right? Two people in the desert, and one of them has the canteen. All right. Now, if neither of them have a canteen and they chance upon a canteen or then it goes without saying that they have to share whatever resource they have. But let's say one owns the canteen and now they realize, uh-oh, we have the following dilemma, that if we share the canteen, there's a good chance that both of us will perish. If, however, the owner drinks his water, there's a good chance he might make it. Whoa. So what do you do in such a case? So I would think there's nothing to talk about. Drink, only one will die. If both drink, there's a good chance that both will die. So if we can avoid an extra death, let's have the owner drink. We'll get to that in a moment. That's what Rabbi Akiva will say. But listen carefully. Ben Petura, the one who argues with Rabbi Akiva, says no. They should both drink, even though it's your water. Unbelievable that one Jew should not see the death of another, meaning almost like you shouldn't be the one to cause the death of another. Now, wait a second. What do you mean? You're not causing, you're not pulling any trigger, and you're not, God forbid, using a weapon of any sort. So what do you mean? But the idea is that, whoa, okay, so basically, the first thing that they are arguing over is, take a look, come on, keep your left hand on 702, turn to 660, and go to verse 15, I'm sorry, 16 on 660. And what does the Torah say? The Torah says, "Oselech ochil b'amecha," don't be a gossip manga, which means I go to your house, everything is perfect in your house except for one thing. I pick up on that one thing that's imperfect in your house, and I bring that to the next house. And I tell the next people, you know what's going on in Mr. A's house? Oh my goodness, etc. So, and then the Torah says, watch, Usamod Aldam Reyecha. You are not to stand by when the next person's blood is being shed. Now, whether that's literally person drowning, they can't swim, I can swim. I can't say I'm not dressed for this occasion, I have to jump in. Or we're talking about, God forbid, bandits come, and if I were even just to shoot up in the air, that might cause them to run away, and I'll save the person from potential harm, etc. So the Torah says you have to get involved. So now Rabbi Ben Petura, what would he say? He would say, look, Osamod Adam Reyecha. You just can't stand idly by. And therefore, let's say this in very sophisticated terms. Says Ben Petura, you ready, everybody? You have to put yourself in danger, and maybe we're going to call it suffix danger, rather than somebody else who is in vadai danger. In other words, if you drink, there's a good chance that you're going to make it. Your friend doesn't drink anything, he's going to die. So he's vadai. Now, if you drink, you are hastening, but you are not. Okay, the answer is maybe there's a good chance that you're going to die. So the question is, do you have to put your life in danger to save somebody else's life? Whoa. So once it boils down to that, comes along Rabbi Akiva. Now, this is the same Rabbi Akiva who 2 weeks ago in Parshas Kedoshim, that the Torah teaches you are to love your neighbor as yourself. Whoa, which means that I have to, quote, be there for my neighbor. Whoa. So in this case here, Rabbi Akiva says no. And he quotes this verse. The Torah could have said, V'chei Ochicha, 702, our verse, which is verse 36. The Torah could have said, let your brother live. What's the imach? The extra word imach, with you. This is on your midterm, everybody. You ready? Robert, this is it. What does it mean, with you? Says Rabbi Akiva, you come first. Whoa. What does that mean, you come first? Just that. So according to Rabbi Akiva, you ready? You're not allowed. That's tough. That's tough. You're not allowed to share. According to Ben Petura, you have to share. So this is very, very significant. It's not like, what's the difference between the first opinion and the second opinion? What's the difference? It's an exceedingly significant difference. Now,
Rabbi,
yes.
the question, you have a father and a son in the desert, right? So what would Rabbi Akiva say if the father wants to share the water with his son? It's the father's water. He was the one that brought the water. The son has no water. He said he's not allowed, but in that case, can he share this water with his son?
Either way, Booby, son is the owner, father is the owner. So I'm going to play tough guy, and I'm going to say that according to Rabbi Akiva, you're not allowed.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. Hold on. Now, if anybody can find differently, I would be exceedingly happy. It's a very, now watch, let's not make it so challenging. Let's make it a little bit less challenging. Okay, Gajantiv, what's tonight? The Pesach Seder. God forbid it's a time, the Waleno of war, or whatever the situation is such. But I have one kazayas of matzah. All right, it's a little bit easier. Okay, it's nice to eat matzah, but okay. And now what? So I have one kazayas of matzah, and it's me and my dad at the Pesach Seder. So Shira, no, it's not going to work. You can't take that one kazayas, split it in half, and Abba takes a half and the child takes a half. Now, good. It's not going to work. Why? Because when the Torah says "Bo'erev tochlu," so the same way it's got to be matzah and it's not rye bread, it's got to be a certain amount. It's got to be a kazayas. And if you have exactly a kazayas, if you're going to have half a kazayas, you're not going to get the mitzvah. So one of them has to get the mitzvah. So at first glance, I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say, Hershon, as we know that famous expression, Shvertz is ein Yid. So what does that mean, Shvertz is ein Yid? All right, so in every generation, it means something different, or every circumstance. I'm going to tell you, Shvertz is ein Yid means that I can't give it to my father, because I'm going to suggest, everybody, that those three words, yes, we are taking it out of context. We are. And meaning the pasuk is talking about interest. Take a look. It's a very powerful concept here. Now, this
Kibbutz
verse,
Av enter this equation.
go ahead.
I said Kibbutz Av enter this equation.
Right.
What do you think? Okay, I hear the question. I have an answer. What do you think?
I would hope so.
Huh?
I don't think Kibud Ava Aim would fall in the same thing regarding Kazait of the matzah, as if back in the desert, if it was really the son who, quote, owned the canteen, then would Kibud Ava Aim require him to share with his father out
Okay.
of kavod?
Well, okay. So
About
okay.
who
So
owns the
one second.
matzah?
So 1 second. So I'm the tough guy this morning. I'm going to say no, hold on. But like I said, if anybody can spend a little bit of time on this topic, all right, if I have a time, I will bli neder, but it's a very fascinating question. And I'm going to say at the moment, no. What meaning? Because let's go back to this. My father, he's a pharmacist and he thinks it's a nice profession, and they don't wake up in the middle of the night, etc. So he says to me, become a pharmacist. And I don't want to become a pharmacist. I want to be an engineer. I want to be a rabbi. So do I have to listen? No. And my father says, marry Rachel. I want to marry Leah. So, and my father says live in Staten Island, and I want to live in Queens. So we know, and he says drive with this, and I want to. In other words, at what point do I have, quote unquote, freedom to make my own decisions, or, and basically, we're translating the word kibud. That's exactly the word that you properly used. The fifth commandment, right? What does that mean? So I'm going to play tough guy, and I'm going to tell you that kibud is reciprocity, meaning and this is true, what they did for you, you are, listen carefully, obligated to do for them. What does that mean? Rumor has it we were all infants. We were all in a state where we were totally dependent on our parents. Okay? That we don't remember it, that's good, so that we can, first of all, have free choice. Because if I remember that it was my parents changed my diaper, my parents fed me and, etc., and literally nursed me or gave me the bottle, whatever it is, etc. So there's no question about it that when my parents, should they be in that situation, then I am obligated to reciprocate. Which, if you think about it, while there are these facilities throughout the country where elderly persons, unlike in ancient Rome, where a person was, quote, growing old, no longer productive for society, they would walk that person, the elderly, outside the community and leave them there and goodbye. Because if you're not productive, what good are you for the community? All right. So the Torah is teaching us not only do we respect and give honor to the elderly who are not any longer productive, not only that, but beyond that, I have to do for them what they did for me. So what does that mean? It means that I have to give up my job as soon as my parent becomes, quote, needy. I have to stop working and become their aid? No. If when I was an infant, it was perfectly okay for mom, dad to go to work, and they had a, quote, babysitter. For me, I can reciprocate in kind. If I have all the day and time to take care of them myself, wonderful. But either I'm not equipped or I have a job or my contribute. However, we're going to come to the realization, if I can do this through somebody else, and interestingly, whoa, here's a very quick, important halacha. In other words, father has money and the child has money. And father says, I want to go to Israel. Okay. So maybe father, the son, is obligated to facilitate that. All right. So I have to order a ticket for my dad. I have to drive him to the airport, etc. Maybe carry his bag for him, all of that. But who pays for it? In other words, I have enough money in my account to pay for his ticket, and he has enough money. The question is, come on, who pays for the ticket? Nathan,
Yes.
The father.
that's correct. That's
E-
correct.
Even for a burial, Rabbi, I think also if he wanted to be buried there and he has the money for it, he should pay for it, the father.
Correct. And we spent last year on this Shavuos night on this topic about being buried in Israel, that let's say the father leaves a will that he wants to be buried in Israel. Okay. But he doesn't leave the money for it. But the children have the money. Okay. Capital O, are they obligated? Now, wait a second. I didn't say, would it be nice? Of course, it would be nice to satisfy dad's wishes, especially if the kids could afford it. But don't give me this nice business. I want to know law. Are they obligated? And the answer is probably not. Okay, because again, in other words, last time we looked at the number of mitzvos in the Torah, nobody counts being buried in Israel as one of those, 613. And if anything, remembering that last year we saw there are really two ways of looking at that topic, which happens to be an interesting one in the first place, that if anybody at any time is interested, they can either, get a source book from last year, or I'll be happy to spend some time with you. But the bottom line is, it's not black and white. It's not so clear that everybody says it's a wonderful thing. There is the opinion in the Talmud that says, what? You're coming to defile my land, meaning that we know that a deceased, a dead body, like we had in yesterday's Kriyas Torah, the Kohen can't go near a deceased, etc., and one becomes impure. So so one school of thought says, excuse me, are you coming to what's the word I'm looking for? Are you coming to contaminate the land? So the last thing I want to do is say that one should not arrange for themselves burial in Eretz Yisrael. There is a strong group of commentaries that say that it is praiseworthy, so it's not a simple matter, nor do I suggest you flip a coin, but rather do your homework, etc. But getting back over here now, so I really believe that what's true regarding the water in the desert is true regarding the uh, the uh, the matzah. That's number one. Number two, something very interesting. Let's say your kids know approximately what time you put your shoes on in the morning. So remember, what was Kibbutz Av doing for a parent, what a parent did for you? Now, as I look at my shoes, which happen to have shoelaces on them, I realize that, I don't know, as bright a kid as I was, I wasn't able to tie my own shoes till a certain age. So it's clear that mom and dad tied my shoes. So if mom and dad tied my shoes, then maybe I have an obligation to tie their shoes. So tomorrow morning, whatever time Nathan wakes up, he's about to put his shoes on. There's a knock on the door. And who is it? And his daughter comes and says, Abba, I'm here to put your shoes on. And Nathan says, get out of here. Now, you wouldn't say it like that exactly, but he says, excuse me, sweetie, but no, that only is, unfortunately, my back, my this, my that, my sciatica, I can't do it myself. Then you can do it for you as a baby, but if I can do it, by all means, don't you, quote unquote, baby me, whatever it is, etc. So by all means, it's not like every morning a different child of mine comes in to put my shoes on. You follow me? There isn't that obligation on them, nor do I have to even accept it. In other words, so but I am simply showing you the following, that these three words, after all is said and done, v'chei achicha imach, it is the law as Rabbi Akiva sees it. We follow him. So as hard as it is, certainly with a parent or a child, whatever it is, that you've got to keep. In other words, we're going to get very tough. And with this, we close. Everybody, we believe, is put into this world with for lack of a better way of saying it, a mission. Now, we don't know what our mission is, all right? But the idea is that perhaps each person's mission has to do with a certain situation that only they are placed in. So just like everybody looks differently, thinks differently, acts differently, right? So too, regarding the idea of, come on, we're put in this world for a different challenge or response to a need. And do we rise to the occasion? Do we not rise to the occasion? And so therefore, this is a tough one. And whoa, how does the next person go? Next verse, 38. Ani Hashem Elokeichem. I am your God who took you out of Egypt. So, and again, Ani Hashem Elokeichem, lios lochem lelokim. There's a repetition there. Come on, Yossi, you just can't come now and say I was here. Look at verse 38 on page 702 and ask yourself, why does how many extra words? What do you mean? I'll cut it out, Yudin. Ani Hashem Elokeichem, I am your God. I took you out of Egypt, lios lochem lelokim, to be your God. It seems to me that there is a little bit too much verbiage, right? Too much in that puzzle. So I'm going to say to you, guess what? Even though you can't understand it, in other words, you want to give to your father, you want to share it with your son, but Ani Hashem Elokeichem, whoa, you have to submit. So just as I can't take a job that I have to work on Shabbos, because Hashem said, good. So when it comes to Shabbos, when it comes to kosher, I can't go to a non-kosher restaurant, because Hashem said. But how about something like prioritizing who drinks the water? Maybe that's up to me. Maybe I can make that decision. I love my dad or I love my child. So the answer is, I want to say, you never knew this part of me, being this tough guy, but it really is not me, but that's I really what it thinks means here. Whoa, Ani Hashem Elokeichem, so that there really are no extra words, but there are some times when truly, quote unquote, shver zayin hayid. And I think this is, one of those psukim. So those three words, you come first. And then the question is, once again, that was the machlokas was saying, according to Ben Petura and Rabbi Akiva, are you allowed to put yourself in danger to save somebody who's in greater danger? So I think the answer to that is, can you swim? And if the answer is no, you're still a nice guy, but you can't jump in to try to help somebody. But if you can swim, I think you probably are obligated, depending upon the situation. Is there sharks? I mean, every situation has to be thought out, but this is not easy stuff. All right, sorry to start the week with such heavy material, but it's amazing. 3 words in the context of interest. Wow, it becomes the foundation. If you want to see it inside, this is Bava Metzia 62a. All right, Mendy, thank you.
Rabbi, thank you so much for
Thank
joining us
you.
today.
Have a
Really
good
appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Be well.
Have a good
Thank
day.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. Good
Oh,
day.
Good.
Hi,
day.
hi, Giannis.
Hey.
we forgot about you.
Yeah.
I didn't forget about you.
Okay.
About